The bright morning sun poured through the large windows of Maple Grove Community Cafe, filling every corner with warm daylight and the comforting aroma of fresh bread and coffee. No one inside imagined that an ordinary breakfast would become the beginning of a story that hundreds of strangers would later remember for years. A little girl standing quietly at the entrance clutched a pair of aluminum crutches, her small shoulders trembling as she searched the crowded room for a place to sit. She had only one leg, and although she tried to hide her fear behind a gentle smile, the hesitation in her eyes revealed a lifetime of being told she did not belong. At the other end of the cafe sat a young single father, completely unaware that the next few minutes would change both of their lives forever. What happened after one simple question proved that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness become the greatest miracles. Before we begin this unforgettable journey, if you believe kindness and second chances can still change lives, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone you care about, leave a comment, and subscribe to Little Kindness Tales. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts around the world. 34-year-old Rowan Mercer had learned that life rarely followed the plans people made. 3 years earlier he had lost his wife, Elena, after a sudden illness that left him raising their 6-year-old daughter, Ivy, completely on his own. Every morning became a carefully organized routine. He prepared breakfast before sunrise, packed Ivy's school bag, worked long hours as a furniture craftsman, and somehow still managed to smile even when exhaustion filled every part of him. Money was never plentiful, but love filled their tiny rented apartment. Rowan believed his daughter deserved a childhood untouched by bitterness, even if it meant sacrificing his own comfort. That Saturday morning he had promised Ivy pancakes before taking her to the public library. The cafe was crowded with families enjoying the beautiful weather. Every table was occupied except for the 2 empty chairs beside Rowan and Ivy. People laughed, children talked excitedly, and sunlight reflected across polished wooden floors. It was the kind of peaceful morning that made everyone believe the day would be ordinary. Then the cafe door opened. A girl of about 11 slowly entered using crutches with practiced determination. She wore a neatly washed blue cardigan over a white shirt, dark jeans carefully altered around her prosthetic side, and simple sneakers that had clearly been repaired more than once. Her dark brown hair was tied into a tidy ponytail, and freckles dotted her cheeks beneath nervous eyes that seemed older than her years. Behind her walked an elderly woman carrying a worn handbag, her face marked with both love and constant worry. Every table was full. The little girl looked around politely, hoping someone might offer a chair. Instead, people quickly looked back at their meals. Some pretended not to notice. Others simply avoided eye contact because helping often required effort they were unwilling to give. The girl gathered every bit of courage she had left and slowly approached Rowan's table. Softly, almost afraid of hearing another rejection, she asked if she could sit there for just a little while until another table became available. For a brief second the cafe fell strangely quiet. Rowan looked up. Instead of seeing a disability, he saw a child carrying far more weight than anyone her age should ever have to carry. Without hesitation he stood, smiled warmly, moved the extra chair out for her, and welcomed both the girl and her grandmother as though they had been expected all morning. Ivy immediately scooted closer to her father to make even more room. The little girl's eyes filled with tears before she even managed to sit down. No one had ever made space for her so naturally. She wasn't crying because she had found a chair. She was crying because, for the first time in a very long time, someone had made her feel welcome before noticing what she was missing. Her name was Leora Bennett. Her grandmother, Margaret, quietly thanked Rowan while apologizing for disturbing them. Rowan gently interrupted the apology with a reassuring smile that made it clear no apology was necessary. As breakfast continued, Ivy happily shared stories about school while Leora listened with growing confidence. Slowly she began smiling, then laughing. Margaret watched silently, unable to remember the last time her granddaughter had laughed so freely around strangers. During their conversation Rowan discovered that Leora had lost her leg in a highway accident 5 years earlier. Her parents had not survived. Margaret had become both grandmother and parent overnight. Living only on a small retirement income, she struggled to pay for Leora's education, therapy, and replacement prosthetic equipment as the child continued growing. Despite every hardship, Leora loved drawing. She dreamed of becoming an architect someday because she wanted to design playgrounds where children with disabilities could play alongside everyone else without feeling different. Rowan listened carefully. He recognized something familiar inside that dream. It was hope refusing to disappear. As they finished breakfast, Margaret quietly admitted that they had traveled across town for a hospital appointment. Unfortunately, the new prosthetic leg recommended by doctors cost far more than she could ever afford. She smiled while saying it. But her eyes revealed quiet heartbreak. Rowan couldn't stop thinking about their situation. He knew exactly what it felt like to calculate every grocery bill and every electricity payment while pretending everything would somehow work out. When they left the cafe, Ivy surprised everyone. She removed the colorful friendship bracelet from her own wrist and gently tied it around Leora's arm. She told her that brave people should never feel alone. Margaret wiped away tears. So did several customers who had quietly watched the entire encounter. Days passed, but Rowan couldn't forget Leora. At his woodworking shop he continued building tables and cabinets, yet her dream of creating playgrounds stayed in his mind. Finally he decided that kindness should never end with a single breakfast. He contacted friends, neighbors, former customers, and local businesses. Instead of asking for charity, he shared Leora's dream. He explained that she didn't want sympathy. She wanted opportunity. The response amazed him. A local artist offered to auction paintings. A bakery donated every weekend's dessert sales. Teachers organized a family fair. Children sold handmade crafts. Carpenters donated furniture. Musicians volunteered free performances. What began as one father's simple idea slowly transformed into an entire community standing together. Even people who had ignored Leora in the cafe now stepped forward, embarrassed by their earlier silence and determined to do better. Within 6 weeks enough money had been raised not only for Leora's new prosthetic leg but also for months of rehabilitation and educational support. The day she received her new prosthetic was bright, clear, and filled with sunshine. As she carefully took her first confident steps, Margaret cried openly. Rowan stood quietly near the doorway. He never wanted recognition. Seeing Leora smile was more than enough. Months later Leora entered a regional children's design competition. Using colorful sketches inspired by her own experiences, she presented a fully accessible playground where ramps, swings, climbing structures, and quiet spaces welcomed every child equally. Her design won first prize. A newspaper published her story. Soon a charitable foundation partnered with the city to turn her drawing into a real playground. During the opening ceremony, children of every ability laughed together under the warm afternoon sky. No one was separated. No one was left behind. Near the entrance stood a small wooden bench handcrafted by Rowan. On a bronze plaque were engraved simple words. Kindness always makes room. Visitors admired the playground every day, never realizing that everything had begun with one frightened girl asking for somewhere to sit. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please like this video, share it with your family and friends, subscribe to Little Kindness Tales, and let others discover that compassion still exists in our world. Special request, before you finish watching, please leave a comment and tell us, what is one small act of kindness that changed your life forever? Years later Leora became exactly what she had once dreamed of becoming. She studied architecture with the help of scholarships inspired by her story and dedicated her career to designing public spaces where everyone felt included. Rowan continued living his simple life, raising Ivy with the same quiet generosity that had always guided him. Neither of them ever considered themselves heroes. They simply believed every person deserves a place at the table, no matter their circumstances. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes the world does not change because of grand speeches or enormous fortunes. Sometimes it changes because one tired single father looked into the eyes of a lonely little girl on a bright ordinary morning and silently chose kindness over convenience. One empty chair became a new future, one welcome became lifelong hope, and one compassionate heart reminded an entire community that no one should ever have to ask twice whether they belong.